Hello Zach, this is Dylan Bishop filming for the PLC applications file. We'll dive right in. Here is the PLC simulator code. So we have here is the very first question, which is our latch. So X1 is our start button. It's a push button, external push button. And then we have another external push button that's a stop button. Both of these are on a latching circuit similar to an MCR circuit. So when the push button is pressed, it powers this output, which is C0, which is on latch, and it latches this circuit. When this is pushed, it kills the power, turning it back off. This here we can see is the run light. When the latch is on, that light is on. When this is off, it will, or when the latch is off, this light here will be on, which is C2. And that was question number 2, I believe. Next on the list here we have a analog conversion. Oh, skipped over it somehow. There we go. So this one here is the input from the HMI. So when we have this will be coming from the bar graph on the HMI. So if you'll input 0 to 10 in meters, and it outputs in 0 to 10. I've done this with WX1 just so we could use it in the simulator, but if this was real world, it would have one of the memory bits being used to communicate through with the HMI, but I do have it set as a memory bit on the HMI. The next one down is it receives and this is just so we can have this value in the simulator. Normally you wouldn't need this. Next one down is the actual input from the sensor. So this WX0 is the sensor for the depth, and we're using the full capability of the analog as if we were using the full capability of the sensor. And what that is at nothing it is 0 meters. If it's the full capacity of the meter or the sensor, it's showing 10 meters deep. And it outputs it on this one here, which is D1. And here we have an input from D1 that there comes into it, and this converts it from meters to feet to be utilized on the HMI, which is what this one is, which is D3. It will be used by the HMI to output on the bar graph to show the actual depth of the submarine. Next on here we have our the call to subroutine. So this here calls the subroutine for the map, and it inputs the sensor's depth in meter and what the sensor is set at. So the input from the HMI and this here, the the sensor's input of the depth. So if we go over here to our math subroutine, we see here there's only one thing in it, and this is a math problem. And all this problem is doing, if I can get it in here, maybe hard to see, kind of is. What this math problem is doing is it is subtracting the depth of the it subtracts the depth, the actual depth from the set depth. So if it's above it, it's positive, and if it's below it, it's negative. And that tells it which way it needs to go, which way the servo motor needs to go. So when it does that, it outputs on D4 here. And if we go back to our main program, it comes back to this, which we then use it again here. and this is actually, D4 is actually used on the HMI to output what the error is. And then this here takes that error and it calls the next subroutine, which is the pulse width, and outputs it. Puts the pulse width modulation here and is used on this rung here. And Y0 is our servo motor. So if we go look at our pulse width real quick, I do have a problem with this. I ran out of time trying to troubleshoot. But what this does is it takes the -10 to 10 minimum to maximum and changes it to 500, which is 0.5 seconds, to 1500, which is 1.5 seconds. And this timer here is our period, pulse width period. So it times for 2 seconds and then resets. This here was originally supposed to be a time off timer, and for some reason it won't let you use that in a subroutine. So I was trying to do it with this accumulating timer and having problems with this, which we'll see in a second. And what it was supposed to do was, it was when the period timer resets, it will time for whatever the value of the output up here, whatever this pulse width high pulse output is. It'll time for that and then cut off until this timer resets. When it resets this timer. And that output, when this is timing, C4 is high. So that would be our pulse width here on the main. So we'd have C4 be high, turning this on high. So we'll go in the simulator. Go to our thing here. So when we pull it up, we'll swap into run mode. And so we have C2, which says the system is off. So when I press X1, which is our start button, C0, which is the latch, turns on. The stopped light goes off and the run light comes on. And as we can see here, here's our actual memory bits down here. As I increase, this one here's our sensor. So if I go to the middle here, okay, so we're 5 meters in, so that's the middle. And if we go all the way up, we're at 10 meters, all the way back to 0. So if we set it around 6, what's going on with you? Okay, 5. The next one is the input from the HMI. So if we set it, we have to remain within 10 on it. So if we go up, we see this here counting, D4, which is the 10 to -10. And so since we're below that, we see where our level is. All the way back up to 10, or 5. My bad. So this here is originally supposed to operate, seeing how this is above it, this should be flashing at 0.5. But we're not for some reason. And when we go above 5, nothing changes. All the way to 10. Nothing occurs. We should be flashing at 1.5 seconds. And as we would go down, we would see this change. So we see, or I'm sorry, I had that backwards. We should be flashing at half a second now. But as we move that, we can see it actually change. Now we're going all the way back up to a half second. Or a second and a half, my bad. And when it's in the middle, it would be 1 second. But for some reason, we have this issue here. I'll minimize this. Oh. Okay. Which was showing us our time values here before. But since I'm almost out of time, I'll go to the HMI real quick if I can find it. Here we go. So here's our HMI, and each one of these is connected to the input. So this here is our depth, and this here is just a graph of the depth of the submarine. This is the difference between the actual depth and the set depth, and this here is our depth that we can set. So if we go in the simulator here, we can see if I move this, I want to go to 6. When I set it, D2 gets set, which would input back into the device, into the PLC to be doing that. And I can set that anywhere in here. And here we can see if we're at 15 feet, which would be about 5 meters, we see this graph which goes down to come in here. If I continue doing this, we would see this go across. And D4 is just, if we were 5 off, we could see that, and it would show it. If we were 5 meters off, or whatever we needed to. But that is about it. I'll try and have this up as quick as possible. Thank you.